All right, we're gonna do a build video today. We've got new wedges for both George and Wesley Bryan. We're gonna be putting those together. I'm gonna show you the entire process, start to finish, right now. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a wonderful day. So Takomo recently put out new wedges, and that includes these. I guess we would call them sort of special edition, limited release Bryan Brothers wedges, designed by George and Wesley Bryan. So we've got those new wedge heads here. We're going to be putting together sets of wedges for both of the brothers in 50, 54, and 58 degrees. Pretty similar specs on both, slightly different shafts, but other than that, they're going to be pretty close. But we're going to go through the entire process, start to finish, so you can see exactly how these wedges are made. And then we're going to be shipping these off, and you will most likely see them probably all over YouTube, Instagram, all that stuff. So let's get going. All right, so first thing we're going to do before we start measuring and assembling everything is Wesley requested that his 58 degree wedge is more of a, well, what he said was an A grind, referring to a Titleist Vokey design as far as the grind goes on the sole. And what that really is going to come out looking like is if we take this V grind right now and we take a look at it, you can see there is a very slight ridge here where originally this wedge would have had the sole going all the way across, and it's been ground down on this trailing edge and ground down on the heel and sole. But there is this little ridge right here. Some people call it a ribbon, but I like ridge better. But it just kind of sits up, if you can just see it. It's just a little bit of a point. And so we're going to grind that down just a little bit, see if we can't smooth this out a little bit more and make this wedge kind of just move a little quicker through the turf. So we're going to grind this down just a little bit before we get into actually putting everything together. All right, so hopefully you can see here now we have taken some of that ridge out. So it's just a smoother, more level sole to it than it was originally. And that is, again, sort of replicating that A grind setup. At this point, now we're going to clean out these hosels quick. We're going to prep the shafts, measure them, cut them, make sure everything is right for length and weight. And then we'll be able to start epoxying everything together. So let's get going on measuring everybody. I've got Wesley's over here. I've got George's over here. So dynamic gold for Wesley. We're going to start with that. Start measuring out the length on these. So the 50 degree, we're going to set it to 35.5. The 54 will be 35.25, and the 58 will be 35 even. When I measure, I always also put down right there on the shaft what it's going to go into, so there's no confusion when I start building them and inadvertently sticking the wrong shaft in the wrong head. All right, now we're gonna knock down the burrs on the end here, and we're going to prep the tip here on the sanding belt. Okay, let's check the swing weights. So here is the 50-degree shaft for George. Put a little piece of tape on the end of it there. We're going to put the split grip on there just to give us a good idea of what a 50-gram grip is going to feel like. Let's get the right head, 50 degree for George. Let's see what we get here. Huh? Here is Wesley's 54-degree wedge. Comes out just a touch heavier, about D5.5. Two-part epoxy, equal parts, A and B. And then I've got a few little scoops of shafting beads. You do not need the shafting beads. They're just meant to help center the fit in the hosel, but they are by no means necessary, and I don't know if they honestly really make any difference. What you will need, however, if you are building with Takomo, because Takomos are all 370 tip as far as the hosels go, and all these shafts we're using are 355, you will need some brass shims. I've talked about these before. Always one of my go-to most important club building tools or pieces. These can make all the difference in getting a good, even, snug, correct fit versus something that's flopped over to one side and has too much shaft lean, things like that. So get yourself some get yourself some brass shims if you are doing any kind of club repair, any kind of club building, because they come in very handy all the time. So let's mix this up. The two-part epoxy, we're just going to stir it up for about 60 seconds. The other thing we're going to do before we start getting building is take a little acetone. You can also use denatured alcohol. And we're just going to clean all the surfaces of everything that we're going to be putting together. So that is, grab some Q-tips. That means we're going to clean the inside of all these hosels. Even though these are brand new and shouldn't be overly dirty, you just want to make sure that there's no grease or oil or anything in there that could possibly hinder the epoxy giving you a good clean bond. Whoa, this one's got some blue, I don't know what's going on with that one. Some blue stuff in there. Looks like must be some paint from some markings that they put on the hosels, I guess. Also going to do the same thing just with all the shaft tips. So we're just going to take each of these and just give it a quick brush like that. All right, epoxy ready to go. Here we go. Swing weight on all these was really close. Just a couple of them we're going to be adding just these little 2-gram tip weights just to get everything balanced out appropriately. So you'll see me do that as we go through the process. But other than that, we're going to be using, again, the brass shims. And let's start assembling. Just a thin coat of epoxy inside the hosel, just enough to coat the surfaces. Do not overdo it. Do not fill the entire hosel up with epoxy. Just a little gentle coat. We're going to grab the 50-degree wedge for George in the Modus. We're going to put a quick line of epoxy right here and then slide the ferrule into position so that epoxy will help hold that into place. This will slide up pretty nicely. We don't even need to use a block to get it in place. We're going to throw, again, no, not on this one. On this one, we're just going straight in. So we're going to just put, again, a thin layer of epoxy on the shaft. Again, just enough to coat it. And now we got to put the brass shim over the top and then repeat the process because we want to make sure we get just a little bit of that epoxy on each of these legs of the shim. Just like that. Now we're going to put it together with a twisting motion. like this, get it started. Keep it going like that. The excess epoxy will start to drip out. That is fine. We will start to rotate it around a few times. Now we'll tap it down on the ground to make sure it's fully set. You can hear that bottom out. Give it a few more rotations. I like to go kind of 3 forward and then 1 back with the shim, just to make sure the shim doesn't start to fold up on itself at all. So just like that. We'll give a rough look at our logos to make sure they're roughly in the right place. That looks pretty good for right now. And now we'll wipe off the excess epoxy and move on to the next one. Now this time we're going to go ahead. I like to put the tip weight in at this point before I put the epoxy in, just because I find less messy. If you do it this way, remember, you got to keep the shaft pointing up, otherwise the tip weight will fall out, and then you may lose the tip weight before you put it together fully. All right, now the brass shim's going over the top. Again, shaft has to be pointed up so both tip weight and the brass shim don't go sliding off or falling out. Again, we're just going to make sure each of the legs has a little bit of epoxy on it like that. Slide them together. All right, last step, we're going to wipe them all down with a little bit of solvent and then put them in the hot box here to set. Get everything cleaned up. Again, double check our shaft logos, make sure they are in line with where they're supposed to be. Okay. Okay, let's put on the grips. All right, last thing to do, we're going to check the lofts, lies. These all need to be set 1 degree flat, and make sure that all the lofts are as stated. So, this right here is the 50 degree wedge for Whose is this? George. So we're going to get this guy set to 63 and just give it a slight tweak on the loft. Okay. And there we go, 63 and 50. This is Wesley's 58. Okay. Looks like we need just a little bit more loft on it. That looks good, and take it 1 degree flat. Beautiful. All right, well, we got one more thing to do because I've got these basically finished, but just got a text from George asking if we could remove a little bit of the bounce from the 58 degree wedge. So really kind of doing the same more or less thing that we did with Wesley's, which was taking that ridge off the back here, but we're gonna essentially be doing that and just trying to get a little more material removed right here just to give us a little bit lower overall bounce. So we're gonna fire up the grinder one more time and see if we can't get that knocked out, and then these guys are gonna be done. All right, we're all finished. We've got George's clubs here. We've got Wesley's clubs here, all custom built and ready to go. You will see these very shortly, I am sure, all over their YouTube and Instagram and everywhere else. So keep an eye out for these new Bryan Bros Takomo wedges. And yeah, let me know what you think of this build down in the description. Hey, if you're interested in having something custom built or a fitting or a repair, all my contact information is down below. And make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you'll be alerted when I post new videos. And I will see you on the next one.